Kumusta mga ka-learners? We're still studying the module Fighting for Women's Rights. In another lesson, you learned that men and women have equal rights. But some people still think otherwise. Women's rights are still continually violated to this day. Would you like to know what the most commonly violated women's rights are? We will find out as we tackle this lesson. In studying this lesson, you can expect to learn and become aware of, number 1, situations that show domestic violence. Number 2, situations that show sexual harassment. And number 3, myths versus realities in connection with rape cases. How can women be maltreated by men? Let's study these comic strips and let's analyze how women's rights are violated in each situation. Here's situation 1. Being mocked for her looks, being told very hurtful things, and being threatened indicate violations against women's rights. These are all forms of domestic violence. Domestic violence can take the form of physical, emotional, and psychological abuse. Being beaten up is not the only manifestation of domestic violence. Words can hurt just as beatings can. Let's study situation 2. Calling out disrespectfully to a person, making offensive or degrading comments, whistling and assertively asking for dates from an uninterested person constitute sexual harassment. Other acts offensive to women include cracking indecent jokes, posting nude pictures of women in workplaces, displaying pornographic materials such as calendars, etc., touching, pinching, stroking, staring, or leering at a woman's body part unnecessarily, asking for sexual favors in exchange for something, and the like, are also considered forms of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is defined as any conduct, remark, gesture, or contact of a sexual nature that is objectionable or offensive to the victim. Sexual harassment, contrary to popular belief, has less to do with sex than with the satisfaction of being able to dominate the victim. It is a concrete manifestation of the unequal relations between men and women in society. It perpetuates this inequality by denying women the right to be free from actions and/or behaviors degrading or assaulting their personhood. Victims of sexual harassment suffer shock, guilt, fear, humiliation, and social isolation. They also experience stress, anxiety, sleeplessness, loss of appetite, and other health problems. For those employed, demotions and threats of dismissal are usually used against them so as to prevent them from reporting to the proper authorities. The victim also suffers loss of self-esteem and confidence made worse by feelings of helplessness and frustration. Now let's look at the third situation. Sometimes we find it hard to separate myths from realities when considering rape cases. When a woman is raped, people tend to believe a lot of things such as, number 1, believing you can never be raped because only bad women get raped, when in fact, all women are potential rape victims, regardless of age, class, religion, education, occupation, and physical appearance. Number 2, they believe rape is primarily a sexual crime, but the truth is, rape is an act of violence. It is an act of aggression to overpower and control a woman. Number 3, rape can only occur in dark alleys or during nighttime, while in reality, rape can happen anywhere, in public places, schools, workplaces, and even within the home. It can happen anytime. Number 4, rape is perpetuated by strangers or persons not known to a person. The truth is, rapists are usually known to the victims. They may be relatives, neighbors, acquaintances, office mates, schoolmates, friends, and even boyfriends or husbands. Number 5. Rape is a spur-of-the-moment thing. No. Rape is a fully conscious act. It is usually well thought out long beforehand. Number 6. Some still say that some women are asking to be raped based on how they dress and act. It doesn't matter how they dress or act. The way they dress is not a go signal to violate their rights. In response to the increasing issues and concerns of women nowadays, particularly in the area of human rights, the Philippine government enacted new laws and adopted new policies, including the following. The following are the legislative measures mandated by the government to protect women's rights. Establishment of a daycare center in every barangay. Provision of assistance for women engaging in small-scale and cottage industries. Declaring sexual harassment unlawful in employment, education, or training environments. Representation of women in the Social Security system. Minimum wage increase for domestic helpers. Increase in maternity benefits. Additional benefits for public health workers, majority of whom are women. Declaring March 8 as National Women's Day, a working holiday. Recognition of the role of women in terms of rights and opportunities. Banning of marriage matching for a fee, and sending domestic helpers to countries which cannot ensure the protection of their rights. Equal rights to ownership of land, shares of farm produce, and representation in advisory or appropriate decision-making bodies. Provision of equal rights of men and women. And here are the administrative measures. Promotion of the No to Sexual Harassment policy. Representation of women in local government councils. Establishment of the National Commission on the Role of Women, whose mandate is to respond to women's concerns in policy making and programming of all government agencies. Setting up women's desks in police stations in priority areas of the country. Advocacy, education, and information campaigns on the rights of women. Setting up centers for abused women or children. Activation of government organizations, non-government organizations, NGOs, and people's organizations all over the Philippines to address women's rights violations cases. Let's test how much you learned about the common violations of women's rights. Bring out a pen and paper to note down your answer. Identify if each of the following violations shows: A. Sexual harassment, B. Domestic violence, or C. Rape. Write the letter of the correct answer after each number. Number 1. Ignoring one's wife and accusing her of having an affair. Number 2. Staring, ogling, and leering at women. Number 3. Having sex with an unwilling partner. Number 4. Not supporting one's estranged wife financially after an annulment or a divorce. Number 5. Kissing or embracing a woman against her will. Compare your answers with those in the answer key provided in your LMS account. Now let's wrap up the important takeaways of this lesson. Number 1. Domestic violence, sexual harassment, and rape are 3 of the worst crimes that can be committed against a woman. Number 2. Domestic violence can take the form of physical, emotional, and psychological abuse. Number 3. Sexual harassment is defined as any conduct, remark, gesture, or contact of a sexual nature that is objectionable or offensive to the victim. Number 4. The Philippine government has enacted numerous laws and adopted new policies to prevent violations against women. There you go mga ka-learners. We're halfway done into this module. See you in the next lesson.